when I first started being a bit more active with meditation, I was just finishing a rather unsuccessful career in triathlon, and I was used to developing the body in a particular way. There was ways to measure the performance of the body in different ways, and there was milestones and things that you did and tests, and you were working on your weakest link. And I took that attitude to developing the mind, and it went very, very badly. I read a book from the Dalai Lama, and it talked about developing concentration, and a milestone would be being able to count to 100 breaths without distraction. And I sat there and I gritted my teeth and concentrated really hardly, and I was this ball of tension, and I got to 100 breaths without losing count. And then I found out that's not really how it works. And then I read more, and I wanted to, and I was becoming aware of how tense I was, and how I was causing myself so much suffering, and I wanted to be free from suffering. And I kept on reading books and trying to find the answer, because there's only one answer apparently, and I had to find that one answer. And again, that didn't work, and I read and I got very confused, because it seemed very theoretical. Like, how can you be free from thought? How can you be free from desire? How can you be without anger? And it was very theoretical. It was all very nice. I'd like to be there, but how do you become free from anger? It didn't really make sense. And someone said, well, why don't you just become less? And I was like, what do you mean? It's like, well, become less this, less that. And when you're thinking loads and you're getting yourself worked up, why don't you be less Alex? And I could understand less worry, less this, less that. And then I realised that even if I was really, really angry at something, or really, really upset, I could be really, really angry or really upset for a shorter period of time. And then I noticed that it would be progress if someone cut me up on the motorway, and rather than being angry at them and worrying about it for 10 minutes, I'd only be angry for 9 minutes, and that's 1 minute of progress. And that I could do. That seemed like a tangible way. And the only real measure of progress on the path is, when this similar situation happened in the past, how did you react? And if you're not quite as bad as before, if before you were throwing things at people and screaming and shouting, and now you're not throwing things but you're still screaming and shouting, you're still better. You don't have to be perfect. And that's when it really started making sense to me, when I wasn't trying to be perfect, and I wasn't, and that came with more clarity. I wasn't trying to be this perfect person, but I was still trying to be better, and I was still trying to be less angry, and I was still trying to be less this, and I was still trying to be more kind. And then I think what did it for me was just becoming exhausted with it in meditation retreats, just being exhausted from this process of always trying to be less bad and more good. And then when something clicked for me, and then I realised there wasn't such a thing as good or bad in me. There's no such thing as good or bad people. There's good and bad actions, and I'm certainly not going to advocate for, I don't know, some sort of relative morals or saying that these things can't hurt people. Bad actions are bad actions and we shouldn't do them, but bad thoughts aren't something we can really control. And we're not a bad person for thinking bad thoughts. We're not even a bad person for turning those bad thoughts into actions. We've committed, it's the action that's bad, not the person. And if we can let ourselves go from our previous actions and realise that we're neither good nor bad, we're just a person. And every person experiences every emotion. Every person experiences every sort of thought. We're all a mixture of being smart and being lazy and being this and being that, and the more we observe this, the more tired we become of chasing these emotions, these addictions to emotions. We're addicted to becoming more good, and we're addicted to becoming less bad, and once we get exhausted from chasing these ideals, and we're not trying to be someone that we're just being, then as a byproduct, without even intending, there's less of us. There's less of our own thoughts in our head. And again, that's when there was less of me and I stopped trying, then the less I tried, the better I got at it. I gave up trying to be good at meditation, and I just wanted to sit there and enjoy myself. And then just sitting there and enjoying myself without trying to become good at meditating was when I started meditating more, because I was doing it for fun and I wasn't trying to be a good meditator. And then in regular people world, I noticed that when people were talking to me, I found it easier to listen. I could hear their voice because my voice wasn't the voice in my head wasn't drowning the voice, the real voice out. And we like to think of our thoughts as real, and we like to think of these thoughts and this captain of the ship as the real us. But really, it's just the mind processing information that we receive. Our mind processes thoughts that we receive from other people in the form of voice. It processes sight, smells, and we make sense of the world. But the external world can become a lot richer to us when we can quiet the mind down and there's more space in our head for other things. And that is where mindfulness comes in. When we're observing our behaviour, there's less to observe. There's more of the outside world, and we're more interested in the outside world because we're not so preoccupied with ourselves. So, ironically, by meditating and looking into ourselves, we're actually having what Longpo Samodo would call like a mental enema. We're getting rid of all of this stuff. So then we're still us, whatever that is, but that us is more receptive to the outside world, and that's the beauty of mindfulness, and that's what we're sort of trying to do here. We're trying to have some fun, and it's some fun that feels nice and it relaxes us, and it is benefiting other people. Pleasant people are nicer to be around, but it's not the focus. If fun is the focus, then everything, all the byproducts make for themselves. Like when children play, if you tell children to learn things, they get grumpy, but if you tell children to play with things, they might learn something. So it's that sort of attitude that I'd like to bring to the way I meditate, just having a light-heartedness and a funness about it, and then the less I try, the better I get at it. So that's hopefully a nice way to sort of explain mindfulness, if not to anyone else, but to remind myself, because it's quite easy for me to forget just as much as anyone else. So I should probably listen to my own talks and remember myself in the, I don't know, a bit more often as well. But yeah, thank you for listening, and I'm Odin Sadhu.